Every one of us carries two versions inside. One is weak, doubtful, chained by fear and excuses. The other is powerful, disciplined, and capable of greatness. The reason most people never reach their full potential is simple: they refuse to kill the weaker version of themselves. They negotiate with it, they protect it, they hide behind it. But if you truly want to become unstoppable, you must destroy the old you completely. The old you thrives on fear, excuses, and comfort. That version of yourself whispers that you are not ready, that the timing is not right, that perhaps tomorrow will be better. It convinces you to wait, to hesitate, to pause just long enough for opportunities to pass you by. It feeds on your doubts and grows stronger every time you choose safety over risk, every time you choose rest over work, every time you choose silence instead of speaking up. That old you is not just a habit, it is a prison. And as long as you let it live, it will keep you locked inside the same patterns that have always held you back. Fear is its favorite weapon. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being judged. How many times have you had an idea, a dream, a goal, but you froze because fear whispered, "What if you failed? What if they laugh? What if you're not good enough?" That is the old you speaking. And every time you listen, every time you obey, you feed that old self. Fear becomes the leash that keeps you from running free. Fear keeps you trapped in a cycle where you play small, where you live beneath your potential, where you never test the true limits of your strength. Then come the excuses. The old you is a master of them. I don't have time. I don't have money. I don't know where to start. I'll do it later. Excuses sound reasonable. They sound protective. They even sound smart. But what they really are is poison. Excuses steal your momentum. They rob your energy. They blind you from the truth that progress is always possible if you take action. Every excuse is a brick, and those bricks build the wall that stands between you and the person you could be. The old you builds that wall higher every single day, and the more you accept those excuses, the more trapped you become behind it. And then there is comfort. Comfort is the old you's most seductive trap. It lulls you into routines that feel safe, predictable, easy. It gives you the illusion of peace, but in reality, it robs you of growth. Because comfort never challenges you, comfort never forces you to stretch, comfort never demands that you rise higher. Comfort convinces you that where you are is good enough, even when you know deep inside that you are capable of so much more. Comfort is the silent killer of dreams, and it is the reason so many people settle for mediocrity instead of chasing greatness. When you combine fear, excuses, and comfort, the result is a version of yourself that is weak, stagnant, and unfulfilled. That old you will do everything in its power to survive, because it knows the moment you choose courage over fear, action over excuses, and discipline over comfort, its life is over. It will fight to stay alive. It will whisper louder. It will tempt you harder. It will remind you of every failure, every weakness, every mistake. But you must understand that the old you is not your protector. It is your enemy. It does not keep you safe, it keeps you small. It does not care about your future. It only cares about survival. And the longer you keep feeding it, the more it will rob you of the life you are meant to live. To truly move forward, you must first recognize the voice of the old you and call it out for what it is: a liar, a manipulator, a thief. You must be ruthless in cutting it off, because transformation does not begin with adding new habits. It begins with killing the old ones. The old you thrives only as long as you allow it. The moment you stop giving it power, the moment you stop listening, the moment you stop choosing fear, excuses, and comfort, that old version begins to wither. And only then can the stronger, unstoppable you take its place. You cannot negotiate with weakness. You must kill it completely. Weakness is not something you can compromise with. It is not something you can manage or balance. The moment you try to bargain with it, you are already giving it life, giving it permission to remain in your system. And once it takes root, It grows stronger every single day. Weakness is deceptive. It will disguise itself as self-care, as taking it easy, as being realistic. It will whisper that you deserve to rest, that you have done enough, that no one is perfect. And while those words may sound kind, they are actually poison. They are the chains that keep you tied to mediocrity, the handcuffs that stop you from reaching your highest potential. Negotiation sounds safe because it feels like you are still in control. You tell yourself you will be disciplined, but only on weekdays. You say you will stay committed, but allow yourself a little break here and there. You promise yourself you will face your fears, but only when the timing feels right. This is negotiation, and negotiation is the trap. Because weakness does not compromise in good faith. Every time you give it an inch, it takes a mile. Every time you tell it, just this once, it hears forever. Weakness thrives in the spaces you allow it to exist, and it will use every opportunity to expand until it dominates every decision you make. That is why weakness cannot be managed. It must be eliminated. You cannot coexist with it. You cannot give it half of your life and expect the other half to rise. The stronger version of yourself cannot breathe as long as weakness has oxygen. To become unstoppable, you must starve it. You must deny it. You must kill it so completely that there is no chance for it to resurrect itself again. This means no more excuses, no more delayed starts, no more lowering of standards. This means you stop giving weakness a seat at your table, a voice in your head, or a moment in your day. Think about what happens when someone negotiates with weakness. They plan to wake up early, but when the alarm rings, weakness says, sleep a little longer. You need it. They plan to work on their goals, but weakness says, do it tomorrow. You're too tired right now. They plan to confront their fears, but weakness says, wait until you're more prepared. And because they listened, because they gave weakness that power, another day is lost, then another, until months and years pass, and they look back realizing nothing changed. Negotiation with weakness always ends the same way, with regret. The reason you must kill it completely is because weakness is patient. It does not need to win big battles, it wins in small ones. It wins in every skipped workout, every broken promise, every wasted hour. It wins silently, without noise, without resistance, because most people never even notice it taking over. They think they are making choices, when in reality weakness is making the choices for them. And the longer you let it live, the harder it becomes to fight, because it grows stronger, more persuasive, more deeply ingrained in your habits and identity. Killing weakness is not about aggression toward yourself. It is about clarity. It is about drawing a line so sharp that there is no room for confusion. Either you are committed or you are not. Either you are disciplined or you are not. Either you are building the unstoppable you or you are feeding the old one. There is no middle ground. Weakness only survives in the middle ground. It only survives where there is hesitation, where there is compromise, where there is room for negotiation. But when you cut off all negotiations, when you refuse to let it speak, when you silence its voice entirely, weakness dies. That is the only way transformation begins. By refusing to entertain its arguments, by refusing to hear its excuses, by refusing to let it influence your actions, even for a single moment. Weakness will scream when you try to kill it. It will claw, it will fight, it will try to convince you that you need it, that you cannot live without it. But that is the illusion. You do not need it. You never did. The only way forward is to starve it, silence it, and destroy it completely so that the stronger, unstoppable you can finally rise without resistance. Growth only begins after the death of your weaker self, the version of you that clings to comfort, that refuses to take risks, that hides behind excuses, cannot carry you into a future of strength, power, and transformation. As long as that weaker self is alive, it will choke every attempt at growth before it even has a chance to take root. You cannot plant seeds in poisoned soil and expect them to grow. In the same way, you cannot build discipline, resilience, or greatness on top of laziness, fear, and doubt. The weaker self must die first, because growth requires space, and that space only opens when the old patterns are destroyed. When you hold on to the weaker self, you carry its weight into everything you do. You try to build new habits, but the old ones keep dragging you back. You try to commit to discipline, but the voice of excuses whispers in your ear, convincing you to break your promise. You try to push yourself into discomfort, but the weaker self pulls you back into the arms of safety and ease. It is like trying to run forward with chains tied to your ankles. No matter how badly you want to move, you will always be pulled back to the same spot. Growth demands freedom, and that freedom only comes when you cut off those chains. The death of your weaker self is not a one-time event. It is a daily battle, a conscious choice to stop feeding it, to stop protecting it, to stop allowing its space in your identity. Every time you choose discipline over laziness, you are killing it. Every time you choose courage over fear, you are killing it. Every time you choose action over excuses, you are killing it. With each decision, with each moment of strength, the weaker self loses power, loses influence, loses control, and slowly, the stronger you begins to grow in the space it leaves behind. Growth is not comfortable. Growth hurts. Growth stretches you in ways that feel unbearable, but that is the beauty of it. The weaker self is allergic to pain, allergic to challenge, allergic to effort. It will do anything to avoid struggle. That is why growth cannot happen while it is still alive, because growth requires sacrifice, and the weaker self refuses to pay the price. It wants everything easy, everything safe, everything guaranteed. But life does not reward that. Life rewards the one who dares to bleed, to sweat, to endure. That is where growth is born, and the weaker self cannot survive in that environment. Imagine two versions of yourself standing in front of you. One is weak, fragile, living in fear. The other is strong, disciplined, unshakable. They cannot both survive inside you. Only one can live. If you continue to feed the weaker self, the stronger one will starve, and your growth will never happen. But if you kill the weaker self, if you starve it of fear, excuses, and comfort, the stronger self will rise, and your growth will be unstoppable. That choice is yours every single day. Growth begins only after you decide that the weaker self has no place in your life anymore. You must bury it so deeply that it never rises again. You must burn the bridges that lead back to it, so you cannot return, even when the path ahead feels hard. Because growth is not just about becoming stronger, it is about refusing to ever go back to being weak. It is about transforming so completely that the old you no longer even exists. The reason so many people never grow is because they try to carry the weaker self with them into the new life. They tell themselves they can hold on to both, that they can grow while still clinging to old habits and old excuses. But it never works. You cannot become unstoppable while dragging the weight of weakness behind you. You cannot grow into strength while protecting the parts of you that are fragile and afraid. The death of the weaker self is the doorway, and on the other side of that doorway is the version of you that is capable of limitless growth. Discipline and pain are the tools to build the unstoppable you. Nothing worthwhile has ever been built on comfort or convenience. The strongest versions of people you admire, the unshakable leaders, the relentless warriors of life, all of them were shaped by the fire of discipline and the grind of pain. Discipline is the structure, the backbone that holds you together when motivation fades, when emotions shift, when everything inside you screams to stop. Pain is the forge, the heat that burns away weakness, the sharp edge that cuts away what no longer belongs, the storm that hardens you into something unbreakable. Together, they are the two forces that create the unstoppable self. Discipline is not glamorous. It is waking up when the alarm rings even though your body begs for more sleep. It is doing the work when no one is watching, when no one claps for you, when there is no spotlight and no recognition. Discipline is boring, repetitive, often thankless. But it is in that repetition, that consistency, that predictability where transformation begins. Discipline is proof that you are no longer controlled by emotion or mood, but by decision and commitment. The old you wanted comfort, the unstoppable you thrives in routine, thrives in structure, thrives in the daily grind that builds strength over time. Pain is the other half of the equation. Most people run from it, avoid it, hide from it. But pain is not your enemy. Pain is your teacher. Pain is the loudest signal that growth is happening, that you are stretching beyond your limits, that you are building new strength. Without pain, you remain soft, fragile, untested. Pain hardens you. Pain sharpens your edges. Pain makes you dangerous, not because you love suffering, but because you have learned how to endure it. Every time you survive pain, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than you thought, tougher than you imagined, and capable of carrying more than you believed. The unstoppable version of you is not built in the easy moments. It is built when you push through exhaustion, when you show up despite fear, when you refuse to give up in the middle of the struggle. It is built in the hours no one sees, in the battles no one celebrates, in the sacrifices no one thanks you for. That is where discipline shapes you. That is where pain sculpts you. That is where the old you dies and the new you is born. There will be days when discipline feels like a chain, when you want nothing more than to break free from it, when you envy those who take it easy and live carelessly. But remember, this freedom is not the absence of discipline. Freedom is the result of it. Discipline creates the ability to live life on your terms, to control your body, your mind, your actions. Without discipline, you are a slave to laziness, to impulses, to fleeting feelings. With it, you are in control. Discipline is not your prison. It is your weapon. There will also be moments when pain feels unbearable, when it makes you question whether you can continue, when every step feels heavy and every breath feels forced. But in those moments, remember that pain is temporary, while strength is permanent. Every moment of pain you endure is a brick laid in the foundation of the unstoppable you. Every scar becomes proof of resilience. Every hardship becomes fuel for your fire. Pain does not break you, it reveals you. Together, discipline and pain destroy the weaker self. They strip away softness, they burn away excuses, they silence the voice that begs for comfort. In their place, they build resilience, grit, and power. The unstoppable you is not someone who has avoided pain, but someone who has embraced it. The unstoppable you is not someone who relies on fleeting motivation, but someone who has mastered discipline. These two forces are the tools of transformation, and they will take you to heights you never thought possible. The unstoppable you does not bow to pressure, fear, or doubt. Pressure will come in many forms. Responsibilities that feel overwhelming, challenges that appear impossible, moments where the weight of expectation threatens to crush you. Fear will whisper that you are not ready, that you are not capable, that the risk is too high. Doubt will creep in quietly, convincing you to question your own worth, your own talent, your own strength. These forces exist to test you, to see whether you will collapse under their weight or rise above them. The unstoppable version of you is the one who refuses to bend, who refuses to retreat, who learns how to stand firm even when the ground beneath shakes. Pressure is not something to avoid, it is something to embrace. Pressure is the proof that you are stepping into arenas that matter, into battles that have meaning. The old you would shrink under pressure, seeking escape, seeking comfort, seeking the easy path. The unstoppable you sees pressure as a privilege, a chance to prove what you are made of. Diamonds are created under pressure, and so are unbreakable souls. Each time you carry weight without breaking, each time you endure pressure without folding, you strengthen the foundation of who you are becoming. Pressure does not destroy the unstoppable you, it forges it. Fear, on the other hand, is the shadow that tries to stalk your every step. It thrives in imagination, painting pictures of failure, rejection, and humiliation. Fear wants you to freeze, to stand still, to never take risks. But the unstoppable you has learned that fear is not a stop sign. It is a signal. Fear signals that you are on the edge of growth, that you are stepping outside the comfort zone, that you are about to do something that matters. The old you would obey fear, retreat at its first whisper, surrender to its illusions. The unstoppable you faces it head on, stepping into the very spaces fear warns you to avoid. Every time you confront fear, its power shrinks. Every time you walk through it, you take back control. And then comes doubt. Unlike fear, doubt doesn't shout, it whispers. It creeps into your mind when you are tired, when progress feels slow, when results are not yet visible. Doubt tells you that maybe you are not good enough, that maybe your dreams are too big, that maybe you are wasting your time. The weaker version of you entertains doubt, feeding it with hesitation and second guessing. The unstoppable you silences doubt with action. Doubt thrives in hesitation, but it dies in execution. The moment you act, the moment you take even a small step forward, doubt loses its grip. To be unstoppable does not mean pressure disappears, fear vanishes, or doubt never returns. They will always exist. What changes is your response to them. Instead of bowing, you stand. Instead of running, you confront. Instead of questioning yourself, you remind yourself of your strength through consistent action. The unstoppable you is built not in the absence of these forces, but in the way you handle them. You do not wait for life to be easy. You master yourself so that no matter how hard life gets, you remain unshaken. This version of you understands that pressure will break the unprepared, but it will elevate the prepared. It knows that fear will always appear before moments of greatness, and that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. It knows that doubt is part of the process, a temporary fog that clears when you continue walking your path. The unstoppable you is the one who transforms pressure into strength, fear into courage, doubt into fuel. That is how it becomes unshakable, unmovable, unbreakable, no matter what storms come its way. Transformation happens when the weak you dies and the strong you is born. The moment you stop clinging to the version of yourself that hides, hesitates, and accepts less than what you deserve, you create space for the powerful, disciplined, and unstoppable version to rise. Too many people try to grow while still carrying their weaker self with them, and that is why their progress is always slow, inconsistent, and fragile. You cannot build a skyscraper on a broken foundation, and you cannot build the life you dream of on top of a self that is full of excuses, fear, and comfort. The old you has to be buried before the new one can breathe. The death of the weak self does not come easy. It requires sacrifice, honesty, and pain. You have to admit to yourself that the old patterns, the old choices, and the old mindset are no longer serving you. You have to stop protecting the very version of you that has kept you small. The weak self will resist because it wants to survive. It will remind you of your past failures. It will try to convince you that you are not ready. It will whisper that change is too hard. But transformation only begins when you stop listening, when you cut off the voice of weakness, when you take action even as fear screams at you to stop. That is the breaking point where the weak self starts to lose its grip. When the weak self dies, it feels like loss at first. You lose the comfort of staying in your safe routines. You lose the illusion of control that comes with avoiding risk. You lose the temporary relief that excuses once gave you. But in that loss, you gain something infinitely greater. You gain freedom. You gain clarity. You gain the power to choose discipline over laziness, courage over fear, persistence over quitting. That exchange is the beginning of rebirth. The old you dies, but in its place rises a stronger self. One that is willing to pay the price for growth. One that no longer bows to weakness. The birth of the strong self is not an overnight event. It is not a single decision, but a series of decisions, repeated over and over until they carve a new identity into you. Each time you choose to keep going when it is hard, you strengthen the new you. Each time you hold yourself accountable to the standard you promised, you strengthen the new you. Each time you step into discomfort instead of running from it, you strengthen the new you. The stronger self is not built in theory. It is built in the trenches, in the everyday battles where you prove to yourself that the old you is no longer in charge. This process is not about perfection. It is about transformation. The weak you sought perfection as an excuse not to begin, but the strong you understands that progress is more powerful than perfection. The weak you was fueled by fear, but the strong you is fueled by purpose. The weak you settled for mediocrity, but the strong you demands greatness. With each step forward, the weak self fades, and the strong self takes more control. This shift is irreversible when you commit fully, because the more you live as the stronger version of yourself, the more impossible it becomes to return to weakness. Transformation is not just about becoming someone new, it is about never being the same again. Once the strong you is born, you begin to think differently, move differently, and act differently. You no longer see obstacles as roadblocks, but as opportunities to grow stronger. You no longer see pain as punishment, but as the very tool that shapes you. You no longer see failure as an ending, but as a stepping stone toward mastery. The strong self reframes everything, turning every challenge into fuel, every setback into wisdom, every hardship into a weapon. The old you had limits, the new you does not. The old you made excuses, the new you makes results. The old you lived in fear, the new you lives in action. And that is the essence of transformation. When the weak you finally dies and the strong you fully comes alive, there is no going back, there is only forward. My friends, the journey to becoming unstoppable is not about adding more to your life. It is about destroying what no longer serves you. It is about killing the weak version of yourself that clings to fear, excuses, and comfort. It is about refusing to negotiate with weakness, refusing to carry the weight of your past, refusing to let doubt or hesitation control your steps. When the old you dies, growth finally begins. When you embrace discipline and endure pain, you are forged into something unbreakable. When you stand tall against pressure, fear, and doubt, you prove to yourself that nothing can shake you. And when the weak self is buried, the strong self is born, a self that is resilient, courageous, and limitless. This is the transformation. This is the rebirth. This is how you destroy the old you and build the unstoppable you.